Okay, so we are going to start recording as well. And I think we've done that. Yep, there we go. Okay, so if you want to navigate to our public webpage, if you just were to Google Jeffco Gifted and Talented, it will take you to our homepage. At the very bottom of our homepage is contact information, and there's a link to find your GTRT. And when you click on that link, you will find a list that is alphabetical by school on the left-hand side that lists the resource teacher, the building leader that liaises with the resource teacher that is a staff member at each school. And there's contact information available here.
And Jenny, did you mean to be screen sharing right now? Because you are definitely not.
I did. Let's try that again here. Okay.
There we go.
Sorry, can you see this now?
We can.
Okay, so here's our public web page. Wonderful. At the very bottom, there's contact information to find your GTRT. And if you were to click here, the list will come up. And I'll go back to our presentation until we need to get back to our public web page for any reason. Okay, we'll go to what's an ALP.
Beautiful. Okay, so
okay.
ALP stands for Advanced Learning Plan. And what this means, this is a document that will ensure that we are making our absolute best effort to make sure that all of our students are growing, especially our gifted kids. So this is going to guide, but not just our academics for the year, but also what our affective goals for the year. And that's usually what we call a social emotional goal. And so that's where a student might work on something like making friends, or their executive functioning skills, or personal organization, or whether or not they're involved in extracurricular activities, things that kind of feed their soul. So we're trying to think about feeding children's souls and minds. Each advanced learning plan will have goals that are individualized for your student. They are set usually not long after a kid's goal ALP is written during the year. If you enter the school year with an advanced learning plan, schools will start setting those sometime during the fall. Our due date for them is the end of October. The overwhelming majority of advanced learning plan goals have been set well before then. Typically, they're set in the weeks leading into parent-teacher conferences and then reviewed at parent-teacher conferences. The spirit of the law is meant to be that this is a collaborative process. So the state has asked us to sort of form a triangle between the child, the guardian, and the school. And so we want the voice of all three of those entities to go into the building of a goal for a kid so that everybody is on the same page. And that's why, especially in elementary school, we will have kids, once kids' goals are set, everyone that is working on that goal, especially the kid, should be aware of the goal. If you want to learn more, we have an excellent website. So we can go ahead and open that up real quick.
Can you still see my screen?
I can still see your screen.
Fantastic. Okay. So again, this is the Jeffco GT website. And if you were to Google Jeffco GT, you'd land here. There is a section for ALPs under programming, which is the green column. And if you were to click here, it would take you to a whole page with information and links.
So once your student has an advanced learning plan, or if they're already on an advanced learning plan and you want to go more in depth on the goal setting process and the yearly life cycle of an advanced learning plan, this page is your one-stop shop. It's really important that you know that from kindergarten through 5th grade, the process of goal setting and the programming will look different than it does when a student reaches middle school age, which is 6th, 7th, and 8th. And it'll look different again when they get to high school. We gradually build autonomy into the goal setting process for students. So that will look a little bit different over time. Sometimes, and you can read up on that here. So if you really want to study this up, this is our district resource on that. In the gifted world, we use a lot of language, and I want to make sure that we are very clear that a lot of the language that we use overlaps. So you'll hear us speak a lot about identification. When we're working on what we call identification, that's us trying to identify your child as gifted and talented, and then placing them on an advanced learning plan. So you might hear in a school building, I have all my ALP kids, or you might hear from someone else, I have all my gifted kids, or you might hear from a third person, I have all my identified kids. Those three things all mean the same thing. So formal identification means the result of that is an advanced learning plan, but sometimes educators swirl around those three terms. So know that at the end of the day, that we're always referring to the process in which we use to identify a child as gifted and then write their advanced learning plan. On the advanced learning plan, we will specify strength areas. A lot of kids will have a strength area called general intellectual ability. There's a variety of instruments that we use to write the GIA strength area. Most kids in Jeffco who have an ALP will have some combination of general intellectual ability as well as reading and math. We do have the ability to write ALPs in other areas. And if you are interested in some of those other areas, you should check out the talent area identifications presentation that's happening after this one. Some of the other academic areas that we have are things like social studies and science. We have methods for identifying kids in those areas as well, but it's a little bit different because it's not as embedded in our curriculum. While we're doing the identification, we build a body of evidence. So there is not any single test result that qualifies or disqualifies a student for an advanced learning plan. We spend a significant amount of time building the body of evidence, and in most cases, it takes 3 pieces of norm reference data on a child before we can write an advanced learning plan. And the way this all begins is with a parent referral. So if you go to the Jeffco GT homepage, you will find a parent referral form that you'll need to fill out in order to start the process. This allows the gifted and talented resource teacher, AKA the Jenny or Ben that works with your kids building, the ability to communicate with you with sensitive information via email. It also lets us go in and start doing some of the testing that leads to an advanced learning plan. Jenny, did I miss anything there?
I don't think so. I think you're good.
Wonderful.
All right, let's advance.
Let's talk about the pathway to identification.
Oh, again, there we go.
So everything starts with a referral. The referral can come from, we prefer the formal referral come from the family that the kid, the family of origin or the current legal guardian. So once we have that referral, we'll begin building a body of evidence. We use both quantitative data, meaning norm referenced tests, as well as qualitative data. So we have at least 2 ways of gathering qualitative data that allows us to learn more about your student. And we can go more into depth about that piece if anyone has questions about those. Otherwise, I'm going to start throwing around a lot of acronym named tests with you. Most of you, as part of your body of evidence, you'll hear something about the COGAT, which is the Cognitive Abilities Test. That's our universal screener test that we use in 2nd grade, but some students will take that in off years as well. Once we have all the necessary information to write an advanced learning plan, we, as a team of educators, in what we call an ID data team, at least 2 people will review each kid's data to make sure that the identification aligns with our statewide guidelines, and then we can write the advanced learning plan. There are a grab bag of things we can use that Jenny will refer to in just a moment. All right, so let's review for just a moment. These are the most commonly used pathways to an advanced learning plan. A pathway 1 ALP is our most frequently used one. So this is where we start with cognitive data, typically from the COGAT. Sometimes we also use another test called the Kaufman-Breath Intelligence Test. That's delivered one-on-one with a GT resource teacher out in a student's building. And then we'll use academic data as well as qualitative data to learn more about the student. Our pathway to identifications get around the need for cognitive data, and we just gather more academic data on the student in order to build the body of evidence. Pathway 3 are our talent area identifications. So that's where you'll see things like dance, visual arts, athletics, which we call psychomotor. And then finally, we have a pathway 4. This is our exceptions. So there are some students out there who might have a 504 plan or an IEP. And with these students, we have a little bit faster of a track to an advanced learning plan once they have cognitive data. But those only result in, not only as in a bad thing, but they will only result in a general intellectual ability identification.
Okay, so we're going to take a second to pause. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to switch presentation. So I'll start talking and Ben will share his screen. But while we're making that switch, I just want to check in and see if anybody has any questions right now about what Ben has talked about thus far. Okay, I think we can continue then, Ben.
Great. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Are we seeing our presentation?
I'm seeing it. Yeah, I think
Great.
we're all set. If you can't see it for some reason, folks, go ahead and put something in the chat for us. Okay, so as Ben has talked about, we look for various indicators, which we call a body of evidence, to build towards identification. And our academic body of evidence always contains at least 3 pieces of information from any of the 2 categories that you see listed here. The first one is cognitive data, which Ben has talked about. Our primary source of cognitive data in the district is the COGAT. Many kids take that in off years, but it is our universal assessment that all students take at 2nd grade. We also have some additional cognitive data sources that we can use when we need to. And as Ben said, that's a lot of acronyms, but if those tests are necessary, after a referral has been made, the data team can make that decision, and then the RT at your student's school can reach out to you and talk about those different options. We also have the ability to use achievement data to build a body of evidence. Our most common data sources are MAP, which all kids in grades, well, I think kindergartners in most schools begin taking it in the winter of their kindergarten year. And I do believe kids take MAP through 10th grade, Ben, is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay, so and kids that take it in Jeffco take it 3 times a year. And what we look for in MAP is what we call a data trend. So that is 2 scores at or near the 95th percentile within a 12-month period in the same content area. So we're looking for a trend in either math or reading. Sometimes we get the trend in both. We can use CMAS exceeds scores. And then we also have some individual or group administered achievement assessments that we can use out of our department to gather additional information towards a body of evidence for a student if we need to. We also use different behavioral observations. The most common form we use right now is called the SIGS, which is the Scales for Identifying Gifted Students. It is a norm referenced Likert scale, a rating instrument that either families or teachers or both can use to give us information about what they observe regarding a children's behavioral characteristics that might indicate giftedness. And then our last category is performance evaluation. and it's probably the most challenging to gather because there aren't a lot of opportunities, especially for elementary kids, to participate in a performance evaluation that we could use as data towards identification. But what that might be is a destination imagination competition at the state level. If you have a child who is an artist or a musician, it might be a subtype of juried performance that they participate in, where there's an expert panel assessing that child's competition with that particular talent area. We want qualifying evidence at the 95th percentile or an advanced exceeds, like we talked about on CMAS, at that level, and other data pieces that form what we call a robust body of evidence, so that all of those indicators are telling us that a child is in need of a gifted label and gifted programming, which would result in an ALP. We always tell families and the staff we work with in buildings that no single piece of evidence ever permanently disqualifies or qualifies a student's identification. We always look at a body of evidence. This next slide is a visual representation of what we call our learning plan flowchart or life cycle for the year. And as Ben talked about earlier, what this looks like at an elementary level changes slightly at the middle school level and then again at the high school level, so that students are becoming more actively involved in the goal setting and monitoring progress. Process. Right now, for our current elementary students and middle school students, we're in the progress monitoring checkpoint. So right now we are reflecting on goals that were set at the beginning of the year. And as Ben said, typically that's done by the end of October, if not before. And hopefully families who have a student on an ALP were able to talk to the classroom teacher at conferences to understand and participate in that goal setting process at the beginning of the year. We are now looking at and working with teachers and students to gather data towards achievement of their goal and documenting that in a formal progress monitoring comment. That's sort of where we are right now. When we involve families and students in the process, it is our goal that the teacher, family, and GT resource teacher work together to review student strengths. The teachers consider what classroom structures might support growth for the student and also talk to the RT about different ways to meet students' needs with differentiated programming, typically in the regular classroom, although sometimes that includes acceleration. We ask for them for teachers and families and RTs together to set one affective goal and one academic goal per year. That doesn't mean you can't set more than one, but we require one of each. Extensions and enrichment resources have been developed within the district that will help to challenge students both in reading, writing, and in math. We also have multiple resources in science and social studies that allow students to go deeper with grade level standards. The progress monitoring happens right now, January into February, and then again in April to May. And we also always work with teachers to include student reflection as a legitimate piece of evidence, in addition to other assessments or classroom performance pieces that might be included in progress monitoring. One of the hallmarks of gifted education is that we look for programming or instructional accommodations that are based on student strengths, not deficits. So as Ben talked about, most often and most frequently, you will see areas of strength on a student's ALP that include general intellectual ability that come from a cognitive assessment, and then indications in language arts, reading, writing, math, sometimes science and social studies or world languages that come from achievement measures. And again, our talent areas are creativity, leadership, visual arts, psychomotor, and performing arts. And as Ben mentioned earlier, there is a talent presentation in the second part of this evening. So if you are interested in that or want to learn more, we encourage you to attend that presentation by Matt Wilkinson and Jenny Gilbert, who are two of our teammates.
And just for clarification, when we say drama, we do not mean interpersonal issues. We mean theater. I did get that question a couple of days ago from a middle school student.
Great clarification. Okay, so affective and academic goals. We have lots of families who ask, why is affective goal setting part of the ALP process, and what might an affective goal look like or sound like? We have always encouraged schools, families, and teachers to work together to set goals or have accommodations in place that address not just academic needs for our gifted learners, but also learning behavioral types of needs. It's been more recent that the state has asked us to include a formal goal that addresses affective needs. So affective goals typically reflect the development of personal, social, communication, leadership, or cultural competency. And we, again, try to set goals that are strengths-based. So goals around leadership or organization, around executive functioning, engaging or encouraging appropriate learning behaviors, or that target an area of growth, but uses a strength to do this. So a couple of examples of affective goals might sound like, I can respect myself and others in academic and social situations. I can be responsible by advocating for myself and or others in academic and social situations. We also have worked very hard to develop a set of measurement criteria that can go along with affective goals that describe the kinds of behaviors we hope to observe and hear from students who are practicing those particular behaviors. And we work with teachers to use those rubrics or sets of descriptions that allow teachers to reflect on them and also engage students in self-reflection and help students know what it looks like and sounds like when a student is being responsible, so that they know what behaviors would be supporting growth in that area. Okay, so school support. We're going to talk a little bit about programming options at the elementary level and middle school and high school level. And then Ben's going to step back and say some specific words about secondary goal setting, just so that you're aware of how that transition of building in more independence for students with their goal setting process begins to shift when students enter middle school. Right now, I'm sure you all are aware that Jeffco has largely been a site-based district, meaning many schools make the decisions about what programming and instruction looks like in their building, with some oversight from the district. Because of the site-based decision-making, there has been great autonomy in how schools program to meet the needs of students with ALPs. The law says we need to identify students and have a way to be accountable for their education. And we use the ALP as the vehicle to guide and be accountable for instruction that meets the needs of our gifted students. Our department has worked with both the math and English language arts departments at the district level to develop extension activities that teachers can use in the regular classroom to build a greater level of depth and complexity into the resources that are used in the vast majority of our elementary schools. And we also have options for students in middle school and high school to begin to develop in areas of passion and strength. In Jeffco, we are lucky enough to have some different options for families who are hoping to find the right fit for their GT student. The vast majority of our students on ALPs in the district attend school in their neighborhood school building. And 80% of our gifted learners in Jeffco are in their neighborhood school or in a school that doesn't house a GT center. All Jeffco neighborhood schools and charter schools are supported by a GT resource teacher. And if you'll recall at the beginning of the presentation, we showed you where on our website to find the list of resource teachers that support the school where your student may be attending. Neighborhood schools can have a variety of different focuses, like project-based learning. Some schools are very focused on STEM or STEAM. Some schools practice what we call the GT cluster model. GT students are sometimes clustered in the same classroom with like ability peers for certain subjects, and that is a site-based decision. We hope that we are providing the right kind of support and guidance to schools that allows GT students to work with at least some like-minded peers for most of their school day. Each school provides mental health support for all students, and differentiation is provided for all ability levels at all schools in Jeffco, and our resource team supports all of the neighborhood and charter schools in providing those supports for gifted students. In addition, we have GT Center schools throughout the district, which increase the level of support for our GT kids and are an option for families who wish to apply for those programs. Each GT center school houses a GT resource teacher. Like Ben said, he's in his office at North Arvada Middle School right now. I have his office at Sheridan Green Elementary School right now. And they also have a designated GT social emotional learning counselor who spends part of their work week supporting the gifted students in that center program. The GT Center partners with the GT Center school to provide ongoing professional learning to GT Center teachers. Our GT centers operate as a school within a school model. We typically encourage integration during electives, specials, lunch, and recess so that kids are exposed to a wide variety of peers. Our GT centers are in neighborhood school buildings and typically are a separate classroom for each grade level, though that sometimes varies slightly by center. Our GT centers have a differentiated curriculum, uniquely curated for the needs of GT students, and we use GT specific resources in those programs. And every student admitted to a GT center either has an ALP or what we call a watch list, which is a strong body of evidence towards an ALP and is on their way to getting an ALP.
I'm going to talk a little bit about secondary goal setting. We know we're up against time here in a couple minutes, so I want to make sure that we have you out of here in time to get to your next presentation. Once a student reaches the secondary, the goal setting process becomes not 100%, but many percent student driven. And the exact way that's done can vary widely depending on the middle or high school that your student is enrolled at. And so that's definitely going to be a question you're going to want to ask during the enrollment process. We use an online system in Jeffco to send a survey to our students that asks the kids to begin the process of goal setting. So they will set one academic goal and one affective goal before the end of October, and then we will progress monitor them and throughout the year before we finish things up in May. The primary difference is that the kid is doing the choosing versus the adults. We do ask kids to share that with their family so that parents are aware of that. At most middle schools, they will review these at conferences. I'm going to direct you back to our Jeffco GT website. If there's anything else, it's a great website, is very resource rich. Some more specific resources that we want to talk to you about are listed here, and I will let Jenny do that.
We have some specific resources for parents listed on this one, the second to last slide here in our presentation. We have, again, linked our public website there. We've got the link to the Jefferson County Association for Gifted Children, which is our parent advocacy partner that can help with helping parents navigate the world of gifted within the state of Colorado. And then we've got the Colorado Association for Gifted Children, which is our state affiliate, the National Association for Gifted Children, which is our national affiliate. And then the last link on this slide is a website devoted to supporting the emotional needs of gifted students by an organization called SANG, which has excellent resources, articles, and supports for you. Ben, while you were sharing information about our GT website, I added the link to this presentation back into the chat so that anybody who joined us later could have access to the presentation and direct links to all of the web pages that we just now shared.
Wonderful.
And we have about another minute or so. Are there any questions? And Ben and I are happy to stay on for another couple of minutes to finish out any questions that you might have. And we want to thank you very much for being present with us tonight.
Hi, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
How specific do the goals get in the ALP? Like, can you give
Again, that depends.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think
what age of student?
It will be first grade.
Okay. So typically the goals are standards aligned, meaning they align with grade level or above standards that are the Common Core standards that we use in our curriculum documents in Jeffco. So they don't speak directly to a standard, but they're aligned with them and are typically focused on an area of strength for a child, which could be reading, writing, math, or multiple content areas, and are focused on critical thinking skills that we know are important for specific grade levels. They might be, if a student is accelerated, they might be around being successful with accelerated content.
Okay, thank you. So I think what would really help me is if I could take a look at an example of an ALP, but I assume that's hard to share because that's based on.
Can I ask what school your child attends?
Ryan Elementary.
Okay, so that would be me, and I'm happy to talk with you about that. Why don't I send you an email tomorrow morning?
Okay.
And if you could just let me make sure, if I were to look up, what's your student? Well, you know what? I don't want to have you give your students information. Is this the correct last name?
Yes, Kim.
Okay.
K-I-M.
Okay, so I will look up your email address in our campus system and send you an email, and then you and I can have a separate conversation about that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, absolutely. Okay. It's my pleasure. Are there any other questions right now? If not, please remember that you can reach out to Ben or myself after tonight to get more specific information about ALPs, or also contact the GTRT that serves the building where your student attends school. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate your attendance and your advocacy for your students.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.